Messing with a girl from the east side, yeah. Kinda love you, wanna build your dreams on, yeah. But I already know better, I'm a go-getter, and I got me, I'm good. I'm head over shoes and heart.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is the review of Anora. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. And now we're sitting down to talk about Anora, the latest film from Sean Baker. Stephen, you caught this movie at Cannes. We didn't get to rewatch it at TIFF because our schedule was a little crazy. So I'm seeing it for the first time this weekend. Did you make it out to see it again?
I sure did.
Okay.
Yes, I saw it 2 nights ago.
Okay, cool. So I'm
fresh.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get in whether the experiences of watching it then versus now had changed at all, but we can say that for when you dive into the review part.
Yeah.
But yeah, are you excited to sit down and talk about it?
I'm stoked. I've been waiting to be able to talk about this movie for months at this point, so I'm glad the world is finally getting to see it. And by the world, I mean you, who really are my world, if I'm being honest.
Thank you, Stephen. But yeah, I'm excited to finally get to see it as well. I had the earlier screening of the week with the Q&A, but I didn't get to attend that screening, so I just saw it with the general population on Sunday night, last night, I guess. So it's also fresh in my mind. But yeah, you ready to get into it, Stephen?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, folks, we are going to take a listen to the trailer for Anora, and then we're going to come back and give you the long-awaited review.
Yo, did you pick up milk?
Do you see milk in the fridge?
No.
Then I didn't pick up the fucking milk.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie.
You don't have cash. Let's go to the ATM.
We would go chill out in a private room.
I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian.
My Russian is terrible. I can't even roll my R's.
No.
Я просто хотел тебе предложить. Ты хочешь быть эксклюзивно со мной?
15. Cash up front.
Deal.
Deal.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Okay, so who should marry?
And do you, Anora, take this handsome gentleman to New York?
Да я был с ним 2 недели назад буквально. Он не жена.
Well, you did tell them, right?
Иванжан, открой дверь, пожалуйста. Надо разговор.
Vanya, what the fuck?
Ты женился на ней? Да.
What the fuck is going on here?
Они написали, что она проститутка, блядь.
Like, what do you do to get all of this?
I am telling you, you do not know this guy.
Vanya?
It's a fraud marriage, and we're getting in an old ASAP.
Oh my fucking god.
Be a fucking man and talk to me. Me go fuck myself, me fuck myself, you go fuck yourself and your fucking mother, motherfucker!
All right, so that was the trailer for Anora. It is basically the story of a young sex worker in Brooklyn who meets the son of an oligarch. They begin partying together. As one does, they get married. And as soon as, word of that marriage reaches back home, things might get a little bit complicated. Stephen Miller, what did you think of Anora?
When I saw it the first time, I completely fell in love with Anora. I was able to catch it at the premiere. It was one of those movies that premiered at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so it didn't feel like the same pomp and circumstance that you sometimes get. But I just adored it. I mean, you kind of have to imagine going into this movie not knowing anything, right? The trailers have chosen to reveal, as you just did now, that they eventually get married, right? And the movie is mostly about the aftermath of that. I didn't know that going in. All I knew is Sean Baker had a movie and the name was Anora, right? And I think the magic of this movie is that first third or half where you are swept up in the fairy tale love story that intellectually, this is not a good idea, right? Like there's no part of you that is like, oh, great, yes, she as a sex worker should marry this like young, entitled, wealthy son of an oligarch. That's going to be great for everyone. Yeah. It's a bad idea, but the movie manages to be so infectiously showing things from her perspective that by the time that like song starts playing right after they get married and it's like shine a light on, like that Take That song, I was like bopping and feeling like so happy and moved and like I was watching an actual love story, even though I wasn't, and I think the magic of this movie is that it sets up all of those feelings because it pulls you into the perspective of Anora, who believes herself to deserve something better than what her life is right now. And like she's seeing this magical moment when her life is going to be plucked out of the day-to-day and be this amazing, beautiful thing where she is the high roller. She's the person on top. She is in charge, And then the rest of the movie is watching that get the risk of that getting taken away. And it is just this interesting mishmash of like heavily romantic kind of screwball with all of a sudden becoming like a Safdie brothers and a Coen brothers movie for a long stretch. Yeah. That I just thought was like an amazing combination to pull off. And my audience at Cannes was like eating out of the palm of Sean Baker's hand the whole time. Like it was just like such a fucking delightful movie. And so watching it again, I was a little worried of like, will the magic work now that I know everything that is going to happen? How will it feel? And the answer is I still have a lot of love for this movie. I'm going to round it down from being like absolutely in love into just I have a lot of love. I see some shagginess the second time around. I feel like the middle Safdie brothers section probably goes like 10 minutes longer than it needs to go, like I think it's doing that intentionally. It has to like beat you into the like mundane frustration of the reality so it can have the grace notes later that it wants to hit. But there were little moments where I was like, I thought it could have used a little bit more tight trimming, but on a whole, I love Mikey Madison as the lead of this movie. I think she totally carries it. Like all of Sean Baker's characters, she is like wildly flawed and problematic, and some of the dialogue she has to give is like very difficult to make sound good and lovable and root for her, but you root for her because you believe this like strong, brash, kind of hardened person that has learned how to like be scrappy and fight for herself in the world would talk this way and would do the things that she's doing. Yeah. I love Mark Adelstein as Vanya, the playboy who is like seems sweet and harmless, but also like so deeply immature that you fucking hate him, except when Anora loves him, and then you kind of love him somehow for reasons you can't understand. Yeah. I think he's so good. And Yura Borisov as Igor, who you might remember from Compartment 22. Was that what the movie was called? Did you ever watch that movie?
The couple on the train movie?
Yeah.
That was him?
Yeah, that was him. Anyway, I think they're all great, and the cast is so fun that they carry the movie, even when I think it could be slightly tighter in the middle than it is. I still found myself laughing. I found myself being moved when the soundtrack starts to swell and the proposal is happening. I felt chills again, and I'm thinking a lot more about what I'm going to call the grace note late in this movie, a lot more, and I think I have a different take this time around. So I think it is a very interesting, well-made movie that is doing a lot and doing a lot very, very well. I don't see it as perfect anymore, but I still feel a lot of love for it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of this film as well. I mean, like I said, I literally got home last night from watching it, and I haven't, I've had a day of work, and then now we're recording, so I haven't had a lot of time to digest it. But I think, it is a beautiful film that bounces, kind of as you said, that sort of like, this is this romantic story, even though in reality it isn't. Like, there's nothing that Vanya actually brings that she needs in her life. Like, he's only potentially chaos. And like, but as you said, when the music swells and you see the montages of them hanging out, you're like, this is the beautiful life that everybody wants, even though there's nothing really specifically about it that you should aspire to. Yeah. Like it's like, you know, it's actually closer to Train Spotting than it is to, you know, like an actual beautiful love story that you should aspire to. But in the moment, you are swept up in it, much like the way that Annie is, right? Like you're there, you're experiencing it. You're like, yeah, you're rooting for them. Like what could possibly go wrong? This is a match made in heaven. And to the film's credit too, like it would be easy to kind of it would be easy to fall back and assume that what Annie is actually in for is just like the lavish life, right? And that it's her escape from her life that she actually has. But I love that the film takes time to have little moments where like they're just doing stupid shit on the couch, but you see the way she looks at him, and there is something about him that is not the house and the money and the alcohol and the drugs. It is just something about his immaturity and just his, like, there is something there that she does feel that isn't just, oh, I could have a mink coat or whatever and just love that style of living. It's like there is something else that's genuine there that kicks everything in motion. And like, you know, I really love that first part of this film. And it's like, you know, this film is kind of two films, right? One that is the, like, this romance that appears out of nowhere and grows and crescendos, and you're like, oh, we're here, we're on the top of the world. And then the second film, like, could literally start from people getting home from a trip to Vegas, and then as they're coming off of the excitement of what they just did, realizing that, oh wait, this probably isn't going to work, and then all the chaos that could arrive. But this film puts those two together and sort of does it brilliantly in this weird mashup that, like, both films completely draw you in and make you invested. And then when the chaos happens, you're like, it's not a rug pull. It's like, no, we're over here now. Come join us. And then you're like, okay, I'm here now. This is great. What's happening? This is crazy. And like just watching all these characters put together, watching the chaos that keeps unfolding and getting stronger and stronger. And each character has such a, like, you know everything about that character just from one moment of interacting. Like, even like in the house, when the first chaos happens and everybody arrives at the house, you're like,
it's an amazing sequence, which lasts like over a half hour.
It feels like the entire runtime of the movie, and you're like, I don't have a single clue where this could possibly be going. Like, I'm just 100% hooked, bought in. I love what's happening right now. This is amazing. Even though if you think about it for even a second, it's absolutely terrifying. Yeah. But like, it's so entertaining. You know, I'm going to make a comparison to a much worse film, but like the way that we talked about Riff Raff and sort of like this is like all the things we were trying and stretching and trying to really, really hard give Riff Raff as an accomplishment. This film is just like, hold my beer, and just like executes on exactly what we wanted to attribute to that film. Right. It just takes that and levels it up and goes like, no, this is how you do that sort of movie. Boom, I nailed it. And I think that like everything that it's doing, firing on all cylinders. And I think it was a thing that we were in the smallest theater at Alamo because that's just the time that we could go see it. But I still felt like there was a vibe of everybody kind of like just really, really enjoying and being on the same wavelength of this film. And yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it worked, even with like months of hype for you. I do really like what I really admire about the movie, and it kind of goes to what you're saying about the way Annie looks at Vanya, which isn't entirely it's Russian sable, by the way. Get the word mink out of your fucking mouth.
That's right.
But if the way she looks at him, where it isn't just about the money and the glamour, it's about this thing, and I can't tell exactly what it is. It's like, I think it's partly his naivety, it's partly the freedom that money gives, the freedom to just be yourself instead of having to perform, and I think it's also him adoring her and seeing her as someone who deserves all of this. You know, it's like being seen by a person who isn't using you the way that so many of her clients feel like they're users. Yeah. And that folds into the movie, where the movie is just doing this thing where it alternates between the romantic vision of the world and the reality. And that isn't only the first part being a literal romance and then the reality being the rug pulled out from under her. It's even like that extended sequence at the house that we're talking about. There's the heightened version of this is slapstick, this is silly, this is ridiculous, you know, I'm watching a Coen Brothers movie, and the reality is this is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And both of those are there at the same time. Like, the movie lingers on like Annie screaming in a way that isn't funny. Like it is actually like disturbing, you know, and it circles back to that later in the movie too. And I just feel like repeatedly it is doing a thing where it has its cake and eats it too somehow, where it's giving you like the heightened genre movie, and then it's also giving you like the extreme realism of like an earlier Sean Baker movie, and it's just like mashing them together and being like, here, you can have both of them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, whenever you feel like you've seen a movie moment, we are then gonna pull back the curtain and you're gonna have a very human moment, and we're gonna let you dance between the naive optimism and the reality, just like the characters are doing.
Yeah. This is one of those weird movies where it's like, it's just awesome, go watch it, but it's like hard to talk about without like robbing somebody of some of that experience of the ebbs and flows of this film.
No, I completely agree. It makes it difficult to really dissect without going into spoilers, and I don't think it's really the kind of movie that needs to or should have a spoiler section.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I feel like the main reason for a spoiler section would be the closing note the movie ends on, which is very specific and memorable and kind of like a curveball that without going into what it is, all I will say is the first time I watched that movie or watched the ending, I saw it as like a release of emotion that had been building for the whole rest of the movie. It was kind of like the exhale at the end almost. And this time around, I see it as a little bit more damning and sad. And maybe we can talk off mic about what I mean by that. But that is the part of the movie that like really lingered with me the first time, and it kind of shape shifts after watching it a second time.
Yeah, I mean, even that's like it's like the one thing that I haven't fully digested yet from this film is just that little button on the end right there. And it is it's not fully Timothée Chalamet staring into the fire.
Yeah.
But it feels as long, and it does also take you on a series of like, I know what it's doing, I don't know what it's doing, I think I know what it's doing now, I don't know what it did. And then it is the one thing that I haven't fully settled on my interpretation of it yet. But I'm probably leaning towards your second interpretation, even though you haven't said what emotionally, I think I'm closer to your second viewing than your first viewing, maybe.
Okay, can we do a little spoiler section, because we also need to pad out this fucking runtime.
Yeah,
we can just process what the ending means.
Yeah. I guess we could try to do that in real time.
Yeah.
But lots of people haven't seen this yet. Is there anything else we want to say? I mean, you've already talked about the phenomenal performances in this. This is a film that like requires, like, it completely requires a singular performance, right? Like, everything hinges on Annie's before, during, and after, and like, you don't have a movie if you don't have that performance. So I mean, it is something that's amazing to watch, and I can't like celebrate that enough. I mean, at Alamo they played the thing with Sean Baker at the beginning, saying like, you know, I saw her in this one movie, and then I saw her in another movie, and I was like, when this movie ends, we're gonna go out and call her agent and like make sure we get her for this movie. And it usually, when people say that, it feels like remember in The Life of Chuck, you know, on stage when everybody was like, it's just a joyous movie, and we're like, how joyous could it actually be? You know, before
and
we
then
actually
you watch
saw the
it
movie.
and you're like, oh yeah, that is joy.
Yeah.
What other word is there?
Yeah, this is like one of those things where like when you hear somebody spend so much time like what feels like fluffing up, you know, a performance, and then you watch it and you go like, oh no, that was 100% genuine, and this movie hinges on that. Yeah, it's just very, it's worth celebrating.
Though fluffing is a real job for sex workers, so Sean Baker was not stealing that too.
True.
Yeah, I think, like, I was trying to think of how this compares to other Sean Baker movies, and I really think Mikey Madison is the main difference. Because, like, if I look back, and I haven't seen all of his movies, but since Tangerine, which was his breakout on, you know, it's Tangerine, Florida Project, Red Rocket, and now Anora. And he's usually had characters that are, like, you kind of root for them, but then they're also clearly very flawed and a bit abrasive, you know? Like, he tries to make it hard to fully be invested in them. And with Simon Rex in Red Rocket, he is full on making, like, I would say, a sociopath be the main character. Like, we are following this guy who is delusional, and he blows it up to the scale of his delusions. But you never think, man, this guy is great. I hope he gets what he wants. You know, you're watching, like, in horror at what he can do.
What, you didn't want Mikey Saber to get what he wants?
Yeah, somehow I didn't. I think it's terrifying what he wants. But by comparison, like, Anora, yeah, I don't agree with everything that comes out of her mouth necessarily, but, like, you love her and root for her, and that is so much about Mikey Madison just as a presence, being, like, endearing and lovable, even when she's being, like, a scoundrel. You know, I'm trying to find the right word for, like, someone who is, like, she's got, like, bite, you know, to her, but it's bite in, like, a charming, endearing way that makes you be like, this is what you've had to develop to survive in this, like, intense world where you have to hold your own and have, like a gravity well of charisma inside of you to pull people in. And this is who you are now, and go you know, and the whole movie becomes, like, her finding a chance at more agency, and then suddenly having agency get ripped away, and then finding a way to bring it back. And there's just something so, like, she's, like, the first genuinely 100% I root for this protagonist character in a Sean Baker movie, I think, that I've seen. And I think that's why, even though this is about a sex worker marrying a Russian oligarch, which should not be, like, a mass crowd-pleasing idea, like, there's a world where you imagine that being a hard sell, you know, for a movie. I think this is easily his most accessible movie. Like, I feel like a lot of people would have a lot of fun with this, and it's mostly because of how endearing she is.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, let's get to verdicts before getting on into spoilers. So, Stephen Miller, if you're going to give this a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
Easy must-see. Even if this has, like, just a few cracks in it that make it so it probably won't be, like, my number one this year. You know, it is very much in the ballpark where it could have been. Like, I think this is just an amazing movie, and you should definitely go out and see it.
Yeah, it's a must-see for me as well. Beautiful film, incredibly fun and entertaining as well. This is just one of those things where it's like a ride where by the end of this film, you feel like you've been out all night watching the film in real time.
Yeah. Definitely.
So huge fan. But yeah. We are going to talk a tiny bit about spoilers of this film in just a moment. But for people who haven't seen the film yet, you should go out and see it. Steve and I are going to say goodbye to you. And then after you see it, you can come back and, as you may feel at the end of that film, you might want to talk with people about that ending. So perfect time to come back and listen to our thoughts on that ending after we say goodbye. But for now, Stephen Miller, people want to find you throughout the week. Where can they do that?
People can find me at S. David Miller on Threads or Blue Sky, or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Christopher IRL and a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can find those at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io. Hopefully you're enjoying that. That music is going to fade up, and when it fades out, we will be on a plane to Vegas to take care of a situation. And that is spoilers for y'all listeners.
I gave you too much honestly, and you
All right, we are back. This is spoiler territory. It's the after part of our review of Anora. We're here to talk full-blown spoilers. We're going to get into the heavy ending, but before, just to break the ice, Steven, I have one question for you.
Sure.
A lot of this film, In the Search for Vanya, centers around, can we find somebody who, when they call him, he will pick up the phone?
Right.
This film exists in a world where texting isn't a thing.
That is a very good point.
Like, nobody thinks, maybe I should just text him and go, yo, what the fuck? Where are you? This shit's crazy. Please come home.
That is a very good point I didn't think of. I guess in my headcanon, they all have been texting him what the fuck.
Okay.
But I do agree that like any one person texting him, or like every time they find someone new, they should also text him and then hope that one of them will get a drunken text back or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Now that we've got the second most important question.
Yeah, let's talk about an ending that we are probably both woefully inequipped to talk about.
Yeah. So before we get into that, the one thing I do want to acknowledge too, and this is not a diversion, it's a segue directly into it. I have also not seen all of Sean Baker's films, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the ending to Florida Project and the ending to Red Rocket are both fantasy versions of the reality of the ending of that film. Both films end with something that, like, I would say is impossible to argue is not actually happening.
Yeah.
But it's like, for the film I'm watching, what fairy tale ending could we have?
Right.
This film does not do that. And if it does, that's a wild fantasy ending.
I mean, if anything, this movie starts with the fairy tale. It goes the exact opposite direction.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, that is a really good point. I didn't actually think of how he has ended his prior two films, but it's definitely having the ending be a note that is like categorically different from the rest of the movie is definitely something that he likes to play with.
Yeah. I don't know how we even wade into the topic.
I'll bring up two things. So when I say the ending, it's actually like a series of things. After the plane ride back home, that's when the movie is a little bit more somber and subdued. Some of what I love the most about that movie is like in that space when you're just sitting with like you said, the feeling that you've been out all night too, and like, what the hell did we just go through? I think it is just a beautiful note in general. There is a scene where Annie is sitting on the couch with Igor, and they're having conversations. They seem to be warming up to each other a little bit. And then before she goes to bed, she asks him, like, why didn't you rape me? In like a taunting way that I found like very uncomfortable, for the audience. Right. And it's like building up to a joke even, right? Like she's razzing him basically of like,
it's the longest setup to the dumbest joke in the world.
Exactly. And it felt, when I saw it at Cannes, I was like, ooh, I don't know how that's going to play with audiences, but like, I believe that Mikey Madison would do that, like her character would do that, so I'll take it. And this time again, when I watched it, it kind of stuck out to me as like, man, that is such a long build up for this joke that is like uncomfortable and like not really very funny, but hold that in your head when you get to the end of the movie, right? She's in the car. Igor has shown a kind gesture to her by having stolen the ring, to give back to her, giving her again some of her agency, or letting her remember that this really did happen. It wasn't all a dream, and she starts kissing him. They start having sex. And my memory from the first time I watched it is they start having sex, and you have the Timothée Chalamet of go through all of the emotions and end with anger and then sadness, and she's crying on his shoulder and he's holding her, right? And the first time I watched it, I saw that as just she's going through all the waves of what just happened. Like, she's taking one moment of agency for herself, and like in that process of, I don't know, being in a more free headspace or something, all of the emotions start pouring out, and she basically is just cycling through the sadness of everything that she lost. This time around, I feel like it is a very specific change in the dynamic of Igor, where it hits a point while they're having sex where she like looks at him and starts to pull away, and he pulls her back, and he is doing exactly what she said he would have done if given a chance. Like,
Yeah.
even he who seems so loving and friendly and seems like he really just sees her as a person, when given the opportunity, he will force this. You know, he is going to take away her autonomy.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that read, which seems so obvious the second time, but didn't even cross my mind the first time, is like, that not only makes that scene resonate more, but it pays off the earlier conversation she had that felt like this build up to a joke that didn't have to exist. So that's kind of my feeling, and I think that's probably what you were picking up on too when I said the two different ways of reading it.
Yeah. So I'm basically where you were on the second viewing. And as you said, there is that moment where he wants to kiss her, she doesn't want to be kissed. And then they engage in a struggle where he's trying to force her to kiss him.
Yeah.
And then that's when she reacts poorly. That's definitely to me, like, I was on board with there. But then when she has the actual breakdown and then he just holds her, that's when I'm like, I don't know what it's doing anymore. Like, to me, I was following it. And then it was like, but he's returned to the nice guy, but like it was, I just, it's so muddy that I didn't know. It's one of those things where like you can only experience it in real time and then it's gone and you can't, like, if I was at home, I probably would have like boop, 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 like gone back and like tried to actually clock the changes over time. I was thinking about the conversation earlier, but it still felt like the circumstances were so wildly different that it was hard for me to draw a direct line from this because, like, I don't know, it just felt kind of like she had escaped from something. She had survived that, was about to return to a thing, wanted to test something maybe, and then just found herself right back where she always is. And I don't know, there's something about it that I couldn't fully clock or understand exactly what it was trying to say. But it definitely wants you to sit in it and you to deal with it. But it was kind of like it was such a fun film until that moment and it wasn't fun anymore. And then it didn't feel like us collectively going through some shit moment. It felt like just me watching somebody not even know themselves what they're feeling. And I just didn't know how to fully understand that.
Yeah, I think and this doesn't, quote, explain it, it just more describes it. I think it is a small version of that fantasy versus reality thing that we've been seeing throughout the movie, right? There's I don't know if it is a test intentionally or it's like she didn't get the big thing, you know, the fantasy, but look, there is this guy here. He is real. He does seem to genuinely be caring. And, you know, I don't know as a sex worker what her relationship is with, you know, her body in that way. So I don't know how like big a step this is for her, you know, like that's something I don't know, but she is temporarily falling into that romance, or at least allowing it to be. And then even that little smaller romance that could be like the gentle positive end of a film where like everything went wrong is like, but don't worry, they found each other. Even that is fucked. And so like the very end when she collapses into him and is sobbing, I don't know if I'm supposed to see him as a nice guy or not, or even see him anymore. It's just like, he has just been defending her from all the assholes, like the people who want to use her or just say, you know, she's only a, quote, prostitute, you know. But then he still has that inside of him. And I think she's acknowledging how sad that is. And he is just like sitting in the sadness of like, I think he's just also sitting in it, basically, like the audience.
Because like the film knows that you're supposed to be shipping them, right?
Of course.
So I can't tell whether the character's genuinely experiencing that or if Sean Baker is fucking with us. Like, is he subverting our expectations of like these two could be together? And is he messing with that? And is the character succumbing to his knowing that you're pushing that together? Like, I just don't know how many levels it's operating on, or if this is purely an emotional thing for just the character, or is it like a collective us experiencing the film? Like, I'm not smart enough or well equipped enough to dissect it to that level, but it's something interesting is happening there, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it.
Yeah. No, I'll agree with that. You're smart enough that you leapt ahead to what took me 2 movies to find. So you can feel good enough.
But you watched it in the middle of 30 other movies, so.
Right. I was profoundly sleep deprived, and I watched it on my birthday and then went and wrote an impromptu thing about it.
You know, what's this movie that only leaps away from English for like 10% of the runtime? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
As I said, still chewing over what the ending means, but on the off chance that if you're here in this episode and you have opinions on it, fans at thespoilerwarning.com, you can let us know your thoughts on that ending. You probably won't, but happy to hear them if you have them.
Yep. Julius, I'm counting on you.
Yeah. That's it. Is there anything else from earlier in the film that's even worth mentioning, since we did end up in the spoiler section?
I don't know. I think it's just a ride that's worth experiencing. I don't know if I have like one moment I want to point to.
Yeah. One last question. Half joking, but the guy, whatever his name is, the Armenian dude.
The older one?
The older one.
Tauros.
Tauros. His big plan is to give somebody who got 15K for a week of companionship, 10K to walk away. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but like, I feel like Anora, I mean, at that point in time. So, okay. Newton, I'm just using that as a segue we have one more topic. If you're cool.
Sure.
I'm answering my own question in the form of a question.
Yeah.
So basically, it seems like a wild deal. Like, she's basically getting the run to the stick, which is why him having the ring at the end is sort of like whether it's emotionally like, you can remember this time, or hey, but at least you have a 4-carat diamond that you can sell to make more than the 10K that you get to walk away from this fun life. You know, she definitely could have had more. Like, she tries to make the move from earlier on, like, I'm totally going to sue you. And then she realizes that they're not bound by U.S. Marriage laws.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that they're going to be able to do to force the family to participate in any of that. But it definitely feels like she should have asked for more in the moment. But she still is operating under the assumption that, like, Vanya has experienced the same thing she has, and will snap out of his freaked out thing about his parents, and that she can still win him over. But obviously he is way more immature than even we thought when he was doing backflips with his pants off. And
love that scene.
Doing his dances in the...
To me, the most real part of the whole movie, by the way, is like him playing video games while she has to like lay there next to him being like, can't we like fuck or something?
My favorite is still him when she plays her mixtape and starts doing her dance, and he's just like, yeah.
I also like they're playing video games and like hitting a bong, and then have to lift up their feet while like multiple service workers are cleaning the house.
Oh yeah,
fun little commentary on like she has like leapt over into the place where she is, quote, one of the people who has things done for her, but she still feels uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But yeah, so
anyway,
so the question was just to her, and I say this in the nicest way possible. It's just the only word I can think of. Like, she has like a bit of a delusion of like, I can bring him around. We will make this work. And it's not just, I need to get mine, that's why it'll work. It's like she has a genuine belief that she will bring him around, and she can land this plane, this plane that's coming in from Russia with his parents on it. But I know I kept wondering, it's like, at any time she could have walked away and just been like, wow, that was a crazy week. But she so thinks that she has it, that she's staying in the danger zone and keep like, because there's so many times where she could have like yelled to a person that they like, help me. They basically kidnapped me, but she so thinks that like all we got to do is find him. He'll tell them that he does love me and everything's fine and we'll get to have our life that we tried to just create. But really, he is just like, when he runs away and he's just gone for the second half of the movie, I was like, holy shit. Yeah. I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, so I think you did answer your own question by thinking through that. I would also say, like, Toros, by offering 10 grand, is also revealing how little he thinks of her and how little he even, like, understands the situation, right? Yeah. Like, he thinks this is, like, the big break that she's going to do anything for and be thankful for. And we already have seen her make more than that for spending a week with this dude, you know? But yeah, a lot of it is she's holding on to the hope of she is going to turn him around. And maybe it is a love story, like she's so in love with him, but I think it's almost more basic of like, he sees her like as a real person. And because he sees her and married her, of course he isn't going to discard her. Like, of course he knows what he has, you know? Yeah. And it's almost like insisting that it is real and then being then seen by him as just another way that he rebelled against his parents, you know, is like the dehumanizing part. But it keeps her from pushing at a time when she could have pushed for more money, you know, more everything.
Yeah. All right. Really done this time, cool. Steven. Yep. Again, just working through this in real time. But yeah, I think we can call it now. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.